Okay, let's talk about something huge. What if one of the world's most ancient and sacred calendars was off? Not just by a day or two, but fundamentally misaligned. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating study that begins with a cryptic prophecy and ends with a radical idea to completely realign our cosmic clock.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big problem, the calendar conundrum. Then we'll look at a really strange clue involving four carpenters, explore why the moon might not be the best guide, and see how the constellation Taurus could change everything. Finally, we'll unveil a brand new model called the solstice calendar. Let's get into it. All right, first up, the calendar conundrum. At the very heart of this entire study is one single, really challenging question about accuracy.
The study we're breaking down today kicks off with this, let's be honest, pretty provocative question. What if a calendar that's been central to tradition for thousands of years isn't actually lined up with the very celestial events it's supposed to be tracking?
Now, this isn't about losing a few minutes here and there. The source material we're looking at suggests a systemic problem, a slow but constant drift. It's like a clock that's consistently losing a few seconds every single day. Over years and centuries, that adds up to a huge gap.
And this isn't just a theory. The study gets super specific with its calculations. It projects that by February of 2026, the calendar will be off by about 18 days. Now, you're going to want to remember that number because it becomes a really critical piece of the puzzle later on.
So, you might think an investigation like this would start with astronomers and ancient star charts, right? Well, according to the study, it actually began in a much more unexpected place, a really cryptic passage in the biblical book of Zechariah.
It all goes back to this one line. A simple question about who these four craftsmen, or carpenters, were became the key that unlocked this entire calendarical investigation. It was like pulling on a single loose thread that started to unravel a much, much bigger mystery.
So what the study does is draw this incredible parallel. It connects four major historical figures from the Old Testament with four key prophetic roles that are expected in Jewish tradition. Finding this historical prophetic pattern was a big deal. It made the researchers wonder, hey, if there's a hidden pattern here, maybe there's another one hiding in the calendar too.
And with that idea of hidden patterns in mind, the investigation takes a sharp turn, away from ancient texts and straight into the mechanics of the calendar itself. And the main character in this part of the story? The moon.
You see, the Hebrew calendar is what's called a lunisolar calendar. It's basically trying to do two things at once: follow the cycles of the moon, which gives us our months, and follow the seasons of the sun, which gives us our year. The problem is, a year based on the moon is about 11 days shorter than a year based on the sun. So every few years you have to add a whole extra month just to catch up. The million-dollar question this study asks is, what exactly is it trying to catch up to? This process of falling behind and then catching up is totally normal for this kind of calendar. But the study focuses like a laser on the target of that catch-up. When the calendar course corrects, which point in the sun's annual journey is it actually aiming for?
And this is the moment where things get really wild. It's the core astronomical discovery of the study. The researchers found that every single time the calendar adds that extra month to fix itself, it doesn't realign with the spring equinox, which is the traditional start of the year. No. Instead, it lands almost perfectly in line with the summer solstice, the longest day of the year.
That observation immediately throws up a massive question, right? If the whole religious and agricultural year is supposed to kick off in the spring, why does the calendar's own internal correction system seem to be aiming squarely for the middle of summer? It just doesn't seem to add up. The answer, according to this study, requires us to do a bit of cosmic time travel. We have to look at the sky not as it appears today, but as it looked thousands of years ago, when this calendar was first being established. So here is the crucial link the study makes. It argues that thousands of years ago, around the time of the Exodus, the spring equinox, the first day of the new year, didn't happen with the sun in Pisces or Aries like we see now. Back then, it occurred when the sun was in the constellation Taurus. The sky itself was different.
So, why the change? It's all because of this amazing cosmic phenomenon called the precession of the equinoxes. The easiest way to think about it is to picture the Earth like a spinning top. As it spins, it also has a very, very slow wobble. Over thousands of years, that wobble makes the background of stars appear to drift against our seasons. So the constellation that marks day one of spring slowly changes over the millennia.
And this, right here, is the absolute linchpin of the whole argument. The study proposes that the calendar was never actually meant to be anchored to the drifting seasons. Instead, it was meant to be anchored to the original constellation of the new year, Taurus. And because of that slow cosmic wobble, if you want to find the celestial marker for ancient Taurus in our modern era, you don't look to the spring equinox anymore. You have to look to the summer solstice.
Okay, so with this foundation in place, Taurus as the true anchor and the summer solstice as its modern-day marker, the study pieced together a new and radically simplified calendar model.
The study puts forward a new model it calls the MR Solstice Calendar. This model basically says, let's stop trying to follow the drifting, unreliable moon. Instead, it anchors itself firmly to the summer solstice and uses our modern Gregorian calendar as a stable framework. The result is a system that's perfectly predictable and, crucially, never drifts.
And the rules are incredibly simple. The new year always begins on April 6th. From that point on, the first day of every single new month is always the 6th, and the middle of the month, day 15, is always the 20th. It creates this beautifully simple, repeating pattern throughout the entire year.
Okay, a simple calendar, that's cool, but how does this all circle back to that prophecy we started with? Well, the study points to this very famous passage from the New Testament. The instruction to find a man carrying a jar of water has been interpreted for a long time as a symbolic reference to a future celestial age, the age of Aquarius.
And this is where it all comes together in a mind-blowing way. There is a key prophetic date in Jewish tradition tied to a future messianic event, the 15th day of the 11th month. Now watch this. When you apply the super simple rules of this new solstice calendar, that exact date lands, every single year, on February 20th.
So what's the big deal about February 20th? Well, on that exact date, if you look at modern astronomical charts, the sun is positioned directly in the heart of the constellation Aquarius, the man carrying the jar of water. The study presents this as the ultimate confirmation. You have a prophetic instruction, a specific date from a new calendar model, and a celestial event all lining up perfectly. It's pretty stunning.
So, let's just take a breath for a second. What does this all mean? Let's just quickly recap the incredible journey this study has taken us on.
We've seen how a single question about a strange biblical passage, according to this study, unraveled a massive calendrical mystery. It managed to weave together threads from history, ancient texts, celestial mechanics, and prophecy into one single cohesive story.
This explainer has been all about breaking down the claims of this one specific study. And whether you see it as a revelation or just a reinterpretation, it definitely leaves you with a powerful thought. It makes you wonder what other puzzles might be hidden in plain sight inside ancient texts, just waiting for the right person to find the right key.
If you want to dive deeper into all the calculations and the scriptural references, the link to the original video with all the detailed study references is listed for you down below in the description box. Thanks so much for joining us.